All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the June 2nd episode of Marketing Office Minutes with John Turino. And today we have our special guest, Dick Kuiper, joining us to talk to us about creativity and ghostwriting. Good morning, Dick. How are you?
Hi, John. How are you doing? Hey, thanks for having me this morning.
Doing well, thanks. For those of you who haven't tuned into one of these episodes before or watched the replay, the whole idea is actually for you to log into this webinar via the Zoom platform and join us and ask questions in real time. I know that we don't get a lot of folks who do that in real time. I think there's some camera shy ones, but I will be putting this up as a replay after the broadcast and after it's been processed. And you're welcome to find that. And the previous 6 shows that we did are up on my YouTube channel. So I'll put all that information in the credits on the replay. Now, Dick Kuiper does a lot of interesting things. He's a professional ghostwriter, but he's also a guru of sorts when it comes to the world of creativity. Is that right, Dick?
Absolutely. I love it. Creativity is a whole great new world for me. Well, not really great new because I've been doing it for a long time, but I love it.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about what you do in that arena and what is that world about?
Well, it's interesting because creativity, as one would kind of assume from the name, is pretty much anything I want it to be. So I just kind of create my own world with creativity. And I've had it pretty much all my life. I've used it very successfully in my career. I kind of did semi-retirement from a very successful and lucrative career in IT and then management consulting involving information systems. And all along the way, I found that using creativity and interjecting creativity in my workday and in my products and my talks and everything I did just kind of took me to a new level, and I kept going up a level and a level and a level, and I realized that a lot of that had to do with my creativity. So I decided that I'd make hay while the sun shines. Not getting any younger, so I figured, I can pretty much pick and choose what I want to do. So I thought I'd spread the word on creativity a little bit, and do some workshops and do some writing and things of that nature. So it's pretty much where I want it to be. I use it a lot in my writing, in my ghostwriting. Okay. I use it a lot, and I've set myself aside from the competition. It's not creative writing because most of the stuff I do is nonfiction, and it has to do with business and marketing and things of that nature. But I found that in the whole creativity genre, I kind of mix the two, and I make a really good business out of doing it.
Well, it's interesting. A lot of people believe, or have been led to believe at least, that creativity is kind of something that's inborn. You either have it or you haven't got it. What's your take on that?
I've read those statistics. As a matter of fact, I was in a meeting just a couple of days ago where the leader of the meeting was talking about innovation and what does it take to be innovative? And of course, innovation and creativity go hand in hand. And he read off a statistic that only 3% of the people are actually naturally innovative. And of course, being the fly in the ointment that I usually am, I said, wait a minute, I don't buy into that at all. We're all born as creative individuals. Think of it when you were a small child and you're getting into all kinds of mischief and everything. That's all about creativity. We're all born with it. And it's society that beats us down. And in my workshop on creativity, I take the audience through 5 basic things in their life that have destroyed their creativity, pushed it to the background, made them be more politically correct or acceptable, whatever you want to call it, in society. So it's taken a lot of that creativity away. And what I do, one of my passions in life right now, it's in my writing and my workshops and other things, is to bring that back. So to me, 100% of the people out there have creativity. It's just that they've buried it. And my job, my mission, is to bring that back to the surface.
Oh, that sounds kind of reasonable. How can an average person become more creative?
Well, that's a whole gamut of things that they can do out there. And It's one of the things I teach in my workshops, very big. As a matter of fact, at the end of the workshop, I give them a homework assignment with about 20 different things on it that they can do in their daily lives to make themselves more creative. And on that list, even if they only do one thing a day off that list, it's going to give them that burst of creativity. And I mean, my own particular case, one of the things that I stumbled on 2 years ago was a psychological study done by some high-level psychologists in Australia, I think it was, that said you do a lot better at problem solving, which basically has a lot to do with creativity, in the prone position than you do in any other position. So sitting up, I mean, Steve Jobs held a lot of meetings walking around, and that was his whole creative thing. He was big creative in walking. To me, I have trouble, walking and chewing gum at the same time. To me, the prone position was excellent because, and I used to be a real eager beaver. My eyes would pop open in the morning. I'd jump out of bed, go to my computer, get coffee, and start the day. And then after reading that study about the most problem-solving ability that you have during the course of the day is when you're laying flat on your back, and especially in the dark. So when I wake up, I no longer jump out of bed. I suppress the urge to, get out of bed, make coffee, and go to the computer and start writing or doing whatever I'm doing today. Instead, I lay there for at least 10 or 15 minutes, and I think about what are the problems I ran into yesterday that I could or couldn't have solved or did or didn't solve. What are the challenges? What do I think I'm going to face today? I've got a couple of deadlines coming up, and I'm not sure how I'm going to attack that or whatever. And I just lay there in the dark. And of course, if the sun is shining, I got to have a sleep mask, to make it dark, because you think better in the dark than you do in the light. There are no distractions. And so I just lay there and I think about things, and I think about creative ways to handle the challenge that I either didn't handle properly yesterday, or I know that's coming up today and I've got to figure out a way to do it. So the creative juices start going as I'm laying on my back, and usually it only takes 10 or 15 minutes. Then I spring out of bed with a burst of inspiration and some motivation and an actionable item that I can get going on right away. Then I'm ready to go for the day. So that's one of the things on the homework list that I give people. That's one of the things that I do every single morning. As a matter of fact, I did it again this morning. I got up out of bed and had an idea for a new article that I could write for promoting my business, and I started writing it early this morning.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I've noticed for myself that if I have a situation I'm trying to solve, or a problem I'm trying to solve, or I need a new idea or something like that, oftentimes I can kind of program my brain the night before to figure that out, and my subconscious will go to work while I'm asleep, and then when I wake up in the morning, lo and behold, aha, I have an answer. And there have been times, obviously, when if you just jump out of bed without giving that idea a chance to gel, you lose it.
Right,
So it's
exactly.
kind of an interesting thing. If you stay there and you let it bubble to the surface and let it become part of your consciousness, then I can understand that. I can see that real clear.
And that's what I'm talking about. And I talk about early in the morning. It can happen at 2 o'clock in the night, in the middle of the night. And all of a sudden you get this epiphany. You wake up with this idea. You have no idea where it came from, but it's a great idea. And I know a lot of people say, well, I keep a notepad on the nightstand and all that. And well, I really do. I keep one next to my bed, and it's got a nightlight on it and a pen. And so if I wake up at 2 in the morning and I had a great idea, I want to write it down, because I know in the morning there's a 50-50 chance that I will never remember it. Okay, so I write it down. I don't necessarily cogitate on it right away. I just try to go back to sleep. And then when I do have my early morning session, and I've even written an article on it that's on my LinkedIn page, and it's called "The Early Bird Gets the Worm, but the Second Mouse Gets the Cheese."
Oh, okay.
And a lot of people say, I don't want to be in second place. If I'm the mouse running for the cheese, I want to be in second place, because the first one's going to have his head caught in the trap. So that's the article, and I explain that procedure that I use in the morning in that article. And again, it's right on my LinkedIn page, and a lot of people have read it and given me very positive response. And it's actually, I've had people come up to me and say, wow, I'm using that every day now, and it's really cool. So, that's kind of gratifying to me.
Well, that's great. So Yeah, I mean, you mentioned you've been part of some successful businesses and you worked in corporations until I think, like me, you became unable or unwilling to put up with the corporate cultures and decided to do things on your own. Um, are there certifications in creativity training? I mean, what do you feel qualifies you as an expert on creativity?
Well, there are certainly no certifications whatsoever. And again, the corporate world, I didn't necessarily get so much tired of the structure, although that bothered me a lot. It was too stifling. But I joke around a lot with people because I've had 80 jobs in my life.
Wow.
And people say, wow, 80 jobs, and you're like, how can you do that? And people say, well, you must be a job hopper and a flake because you go from one job to another. Look, even though I've had 80 jobs, and a lot of them have been part-time, and I've had 2, 3, 4 jobs at a time. That's why I've accumulated that number. But in the corporate world, and I started out in IT and worked my way into management consulting and doing some marketing, all surrounded in the area of using information processing to make a company more profitable. And I did that for years and years and years. I was a consultant. I did consulting all over the world for companies, helping them figure out how to become more profitable with the right use of information. To me, and people think IT is not boring. Well, to me, it got boring because it wasn't really IT. It was using information, not programming, even though that's where I started. Not the hardware, not the software. It's the information and how you use it in the best way. And so, even though I've had 80 jobs, I've had 2 years in my life when I've made over $1 million. And
wow.
2 different career fields, one in management consulting and one in real estate, of all things, after I retired. But what really made me do a semi-retirement from the whole IT management consulting thing was that I got bored because I ran into the same problem because I was a problem solver. My thing was to go into a company and help them solve problems. Starbucks coffee, when they had 1,000 stores and they wanted to go to 2,000. I did a consulting job for them about information, how to use that to grow their company. And, I was in Miami doing Carnival Cruise Lines and Tokyo with Japan Airlines. I even did a consulting for the Israeli army and their supply chain for the front lines. But as many different things as I did, as many different companies and organizations I worked for, I kept running into the same problems over and over again. People weren't capturing the right information. They weren't using it properly. There's only so many times you can solve a problem. When I've solved a problem 100 times in a row for 100 different companies, it gets boring, so I had to find something else. So I just kind of retired from that world, even though I had a large following and I wrote well over 1,000 things, blogs and articles and books and all that kind of stuff. And I said, it's time for something new, so I jumped into real estate, made a lot of money in real estate, and then the real estate market crashed. So I found something else and dabbled around, for a number of years. And then I decided I'd hang out my shingle as a professional writer. And that business has taken off now. So it's, that's how I've accumulated 80 jobs. But that whole thing has made me an expert on creativity. And one of the big things that people don't realize about creativity, Steve Jobs once said, creativity is nothing more than connecting dots. And we all collect dots. We collect dots all of our lives. The thing is, we don't connect them. All right. Okay. And my thing with 80 different jobs, and I worked for 200 different companies in 40 different industries, I've got dots all over the map. Right. And so it's just a matter, like Jobs was saying, of taking a dot from here and a dot from there and a dot from there. And all of a sudden you put those 3 dots together and you got something new, because the synergies that are created by connecting those 3 dots bring something new. And that's what it's all about. So that's my certification in creativity, is that I'm a dot connector. And, and I've got, one of the things that made me really successful in management consulting is cross-pollination of ideas. Because I worked for Starbucks and they had problems with their lot traceability and keeping the lots of different coffee beans that came in from South America straight, so they didn't jeopardize and mix them together too much or whatever, other than with blends done on purpose. So I was helping them figure out how to do that, keeping their lots of coffee beans straight. 3 weeks later, I found myself in Pennsylvania working for a steel company. they had the same problem with their steel ingots because they came in lots, different quantities, different qualities, different sizes, and they need to keep those straight because you don't want to mix too many things into a certain run of steel, otherwise it gets kind of contaminated. So I used the same methodology that I had taught Starbucks in the steel company. So that cross-pollination is where a lot of that comes from. And in my workshop, I talked about how certain inventors have invented certain things, and 95% of them have come from a cross-pollination of ideas. They've learned one thing over here and apply it over there in a totally different way.
You know, that's very, very true. My experience bears that out. In the 80s, I was the guru of design for test for electronic circuits. And I traveled the world, Europe and Asia, the United States, and I probably did that design for test 2-day seminar workshop for probably 500, if not close to 1,000 electronics companies.
Yeah.
Even though it was the same content each time, it was a new company and it was a new audience, but they had the same problem. The designs were getting more complex. The test people had very little influence on making sure that they were testable. And so they bring in the outside expert from far away to come teach it. And what I really taught them was they can be creative working together. And I taught more probably communication. I mean, even though I had 640 35mm slides to go through in those 2 days, what I really was doing was getting them to talk to each other.
Yeah.
And also to understand the language of economics rather than the ones and zeros of nanoseconds.
Well, you know, and that's very, very important. Two things there, John. One is that, and we've talked before about your background in this whole test engineering thing, and I also had a lot of clients in the semiconductor business and some in test engineering as well. So, and I know that. And the one thing about, even though it's the same problem, you're working with different people, that's the only thing that kept me in that career as long as it did, is because I love meeting new people. I love learning new things. Even though the problem is the same, the setting is different. Right. So I met different people, different settings and all that, and collected another dot for my map. And so that's what kept me going as long as it did, you know, in that whole thing. And then getting people to communicate, and especially getting people, like in your case, engineers, and in my case, people in the IT department, the programmers and the analysts and all that, to getting them to understand a little bit about economics. Because, hey, you're not here, we don't pay you to run the computer. We pay you to help the company become more profitable with what you can provide, because you provide a service about information and how to help us all handle our information better. And to me, one of the things that helped me in my whole career and made me successful was having an eye on the profitability of the company is my first priority. The computers come second. It's only a tool to get there. And so with that direction that I had, I was automatically a fan of the board of directors and the presidents, the CEOs. They thought, who's this young punk 20-year-old kid that all of a sudden understands P&L and balance sheet and cash flow and understands how they can help us in IT to make the bottom line bigger. And so those are two things that I absolutely relate to, just like in your background.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we did during the exercise after a day and a quarter of lecture was to have them sit down with their own designs, make the changes that were suggested and that were possible, and then estimate the savings in time and the savings in dollars that they would achieve. And virtually every one of them was well over $1 million, and some a year, and some were $5 million a year, $10 million a year. And we accomplished that in a half a day of actual work on the designs by getting them to talk with each other.
Exactly.
I used to send a summary report in that said, okay, you know, this cost you $10,000 for me and probably $40,000 in productivity for your people for 2 days. And they came up with estimated savings on 13 designs of $1.8 million. And, you know, it made them really happy to write the check.
Exactly. And that's the kind of management consulting I did, because I'd go into a company at their facility. They didn't come to me. I went to them, and I did a plant tour, warehouse tour, whatever it took. And then I would go through functional area by functional area within the company and kind of interrogate and coach and work with people about what is it you really need. I know you read that in a trade magazine, and that sounds really good on the surface, but I got to tell you, when I was in the plant yesterday, that's not going to pay back for you. That particular thing, as good as it sounds, is not going to pay back for you. This thing over here that you're doing wrong, if you fix that, that's going to pay back 10 times what that's going to pay back. And that's what it is. It was a coaching and an education, all that, working with them. And at the same time, I'm extracting information from them, like, okay, if you solve that problem, what's it worth? How many incremental sales are you going to get if you solve that problem in customer service? You know, or if you solve that problem on the production line to be able to make things faster, or to improve your quality, to reduce your reject rate, whatever. And then I'd boil it all down to dollars and cents. And it took me 3 days to go through that questioning process with all the different functional areas of a company. And by the end of the 3 days, I could give them a spreadsheet showing what it was going to do to their overall profitability if they solved the 20 problems that we as a group had uncovered in those days. And then with my recommendations about process improvements and those things, that if you improve that, here's $1 million going on your bottom line next year.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Now, how often do you do your workshops on creativity, Dick?
Well, you know, the thing is that, you know, since I got out of the corporate world and then did my run in real estate and did my run in a number of other things, decided to hang out my shingle as a ghostwriter. And I've only been doing that officially as a business for less than 6 months now. And I'm basically, I'm full. You know, I mean, I've got enough work that I want to handle. So creativity is something that's kind of an offshoot of that. Now, one thing about writing is that as much as I love to write, I don't want to do it for 10 hours a day or even 8 hours a day. You know, there's only so much writing that you can do, and then you got to go do something else. So I've always got to have something else going on, and the creativity is the perfect thing for me because they will feed on each other. So right now I'm doing one creativity workshop a month in the Portland, Vancouver area. Okay. What I'd like to do is be able to grow that and grow the size of the attendees, but I don't want to make it too big because my workshops are very interactive and a lot of exercises we do right there in the class, brain exercises, you know, to really help people come up with creative ideas right there in the class. So although I can do it in a webinar format, I'd rather not because we have a lot more fun in a classroom setting, but I never want to have more than 30 people at the most. You know, 20 people works really good because you get a lot of interaction going and the people learn from each other and all that. So having more of those workshops is kind of where I'm going with this. And then maybe do a webinar because I can teach a lot on the webinar. I can get a lot of my points across. Not the same as in real life, but still I can do that. And then, you know, and I'm sure that I can very easily write a book on it. As a matter of fact, I pretty much already have a bunch because I've written a bunch of blogs on creativity, how to be more creative and different ways to get it and how you can use it to make more money and that type of thing. As a matter of fact, I'm setting up a little LinkedIn community for people that are graduates of my workshop called Creativity for Cash. And it's going to be a group that's open only to graduates of my workshop where they can get online and share ideas with each other and share success stories with each other. And I think that's going to be a good community. So I'd like to grow that online community, even though that isn't going to produce any income for me. And, you know, income is, so, you know, it's great. And I'm retired. So I don't do this to put food on the table. I like the extra money because, you know, it makes me in a place where I can buy more beer, go to a NASCAR race, you know, every now and then. But, you know, it's the gratification. I hate to say that because it sounds so trite, but the gratification I get out of it by seeing the light come on in other people and having them come back to me 2 months later and say, you wouldn't believe what I did at work, you know, and that's the kind of thing. So, long story short, I mean, in answer to your first question, I'd like to grow that creativity side of my business, do more workshops, do bigger workshops without being gargantuous. I don't want to, even though I've spoken to groups of 1,000 people in an auditorium, I like to keep it down to a manageable size to keep that interaction going.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, thank you, Dick, for all that information on the creativity side. Before we run out of time here, I did want to take a couple of minutes and give you a chance to tell me a little bit about what it is you do in the ghostwriting area. You
Sure.
mentioned it's only a 6 months old kind of a business officially. What kinds of things do you write? What kind of clients do you do work for? Tell us a little more about that.
Well, and again, I've only had my shingle out as a professional ghostwriter for 6 months, but I've been doing writing for 50 years. And even some of that ghostwriting, even before I became an official ghostwriter. But the things I do in ghostwriting, and I've written 5 books, 3 of them under my own name, and 2 of them as a ghostwriter for other people. And I think the big thing that I do right now, the biggest thing, if I had to prioritize them on how much time I spend on them, is website content and blogs for people. So I'll write a blog under somebody else's name. And again, it allows them to shine because they got great ideas, but they don't always have the ability or the time to put it down in writing in a form that's actually publishable and as good as it should be given their ideas. So I take somebody's ideas and I interview them, and then I write a blog under their name. They can publish it under their name and establish themselves as more of a thought leader in their industry and gather all the kudos. And I think that's the biggest thing that I do. Now, when I first started, when I hung on my shingle, one of the things I got going, because I think I'm a great writer, and some other people do, surprisingly. But yeah, I am a good writer. But the thing I did to jumpstart my business, I joined this networking group in Portland, which was just phenomenal. And what I did at the beginning when I joined the group is I offered, as an introductory offer to my writing, to offer a free bio to the first 10 or 15 or 20 people I came forward wanted a bio written. Whether it's a bio for a speaking gig or a writing gig or just an about me thing for their website, I would write that for them for free. Not a great big thing, but 1 to 2 paragraphs, maybe 300 words or 200 words or whatever. And now I've actually turned that into a business. It's kind of a loss leader because I don't charge a lot for it. It's pretty cheap, inexpensive, not cheap. But and it also brings out my creativity because I'll give you one story. I had a lady who came to me, and she was from the educational background. She had spent almost 30 years in education as a teacher and as an administrator. And then she lost that job, couldn't find another one that she liked that was going to pay any money. So like a lot of other people, she went out and got a real estate license and then found herself in this highly competitive real estate world without any credentials. So I sat down with her and interviewed her, and I found out all of those things that she had done in the past that were her dots, all right? And those dots were transferable skills into real estate. All the things that she did in school, the teaching, the coaching, the mentoring, the having patience, the budgeting, and all those other things made her a really well-rounded real estate agent. And that's the kind of thing I really like to do. So in those bios, and I still do them, I do 4 or 5 bios for people a week. And that's how I give them a flavor for what I can do. And they look at it and they say, my God, I had one woman, I wrote a bio for her. And even though I didn't make any outlandish promises on what she could do or what she was all about, she read the bio and she started crying.
Oh, wow.
In front of a group of people that because she was overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I said, well, did I lie? Did I stretch the truth? Is this something you can't stand behind? She says, no, it's all true. It's me. I just never thought about it that way.
Right.
So it's rewarding. And that's one of the things that I do, even though I don't make a lot of money writing bios. I really enjoy doing them because I meet people, I find out all about them in a half an hour, and then I write a bio. And a lot of my big bio packages, I write 3 of them. I write a big one, a small one, and a medium-sized one because they're for different purposes, right? And then they go off from there. And then in the process of that, I also write an elevator pitch for them, something they can say in 15 to 30 seconds that introduces them to who they're talking to, the stranger they're talking to, about what it is they do.
Okay.
And so that's one of the things I do. But again, from the grand scheme of things, I think blogs and web content, a lot of marketing collateral. I do flyers and brochures and things like that. And it's just pretty much all over the map. Again, only nonfiction. I'm not good at writing fiction, so I don't try to be.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, we're just about out of time. If people want to contact you and learn some more about what you might be able to do for them, what's the best way for them to contact you, Dick?
Well, I think probably the best way for them to get a hold of me and to see some of my work at the same time is to go out to my website, which is www.ghostwriterhelp, all one big word, ghostwriterhelp.com. And I always emphasize the word help in there because my mission in life is to help other people make more money and have more success in their careers. And so ghostwriterhelp.com, that's how to get a hold of me. That's how to find out a little bit more about my background. Also have a LinkedIn profile under Dick Kuiper. There's also some writing under there, a lot more about my background and some of those 80 jobs that I've had, so people can see all the variety of stuff that I've had. So that's probably the best way.
All right. How about an email or a phone number or those?
Well, people can reach me on the phone in the Pacific Northwest, Pacific time at 360-670-2914.
That was 360-670-2914?
That's correct. And my email address is Dick, D-I-C-K, .Kuiper, and it rhymes with sniper, but it's spelled K-U-I-P-E-R.
Right.
At CenturyLink.net.
Okay, good. All right, I'll add those in and the credits at the end of this, so if people want to find you, they can be able to do that. I sure appreciate you spending some time with us this morning, Dick, and it really was fascinating and interesting work. For those of you who are watching this as a replay, this is the 7th of a series of 7 episodes of Marketing Office Minutes with John Turino. So you'll be able to find it up on YouTube at the end of today, June 2nd. And if you have ideas for other things that you would like to have us present, either marketing related or business related, I'd sure appreciate some information on that so that I can see if I can find somebody or develop it to give you what you need and what you want. I can be reached at johnturino.com, john@johnturino.com, and my website is http://johnturino.com, and there you can find links and blog posts and all kinds of other information that might be of value to you. So with that, I think we're going to stop the recording here, and thank you all for watching either live or in the replay. And thank you, Dick, for being part of this.
Thanks, John. Really appreciate it.